Hello, there's no jingle. Let me tell you why there's no jingle. This is a little Brucey bonus episode that I just said to Mr. Harrison, look, we've just done a great chat about UFC 288. And it was a case of, right, well, look, we've still got stuff that we want to talk about, stuff that happened last weekend. So just a tiny little episode, little bonus one for you, just talking about a few of the little things that have happened in the MMA community and somewhat wider than the MMA community as well, because it might have some implications on some UFC fighters. How are you, Blake?
Very good, very good. As you say, we had a nice little chat about UFC 288, your favourite fighter, Henry Cejudo, fighting this Saturday. So go and check that one out. And yeah, and now we're just. I mean, to be honest, this is more you. You said that there was a few things you wanted to discuss. So
Pressure, man, pressure.
So let's get let's
Well,
do it.
one of the things that I did want to just quickly chat about was it it wasn't the most exciting of cards, the Ricky Simon and Song Yadong event last weekend, but I felt
I did not think this is where you were going to start. I thought you were
Did
going
you
to
not?
start. No, I thought you were going to start with.
Did you think the gloves were going to come off straight away?
I thought they were coming off
Eh?
straight away. I thought you were getting into the circus of it all.
No, no. I want to give a big shout out to Song Yadong, who I thought put in a phenomenal performance. I
Yes.
thought he looked absolutely incredible against Ricky Simon, who was on an absolute tear and was looking great. Obviously, got a win over and took the O from our mate Jack Shaw, and was looking like it was all going his way. And Song Yadong just looked incredible. I thought. I was watching some stuff leading up to it, and I was seeing an interview with Uriah Faber talking about when he sort of turned up at Team Alpha Male and just said, like, straight away, we just saw something like remarkable in this lad. And I thought his jab was ferocious and brilliant, and I just thought his combos were excellent. His footwork was brilliant. When that fight finished, I definitely was caught up in the moment, but I was thinking we've seen a future champion. He's young, and I thought he was super exciting. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to see what comes out. Ricky Simon's striking is no joke, and I thought Song absolutely outstruck him, and to give Ricky his credit, he put in a solid performance, but he was running out of ideas, and Song just looked different class. What did you make of the fight?
I thought it was a good fight, and I thought it was Simon just could not get him down. He just and that would have been his bread and butter. And if he did get him down, Song was able to pop back up quick. I mean, you're training at Team Alpha Male with all those guys that are such great, experienced wrestlers, the coaches, the fighters around you, all that stuff. You're going to learn how to deal with that very well, and it showed. I think the thing that is amazing about Song Yadong, he's only 25 years old. He can improve so much over the next 5-6 years. He can get better and better and better. And even when you look back at his loss to Corey Sandhagen before this fight, he was in that fight. Like, I think Corey was winning, and I'm a big Corey Sandhagen fan. I think Corey's a phenomenal fighter. But Song was in there with him, and then it was a doctor stoppage. The cut above the eye, I think it was, that just stopped the fight. So, he was by no means shamed in that fight, or shown, there's big levels to jump up here to get to that point. I think we could. I don't want to go as far as say future champion, because you look at his record, he's not beaten anyone well, he has got a win over Marlon Vera, but
he called out Cheeto. He called out Cheeto at the end,
which makes a lot of sense. Like, Cheeto's coming off the loss to Corey Sandhagen. He needs. It's a good thing, because he'd be fighting behind him, but not loads behind him. And if you're Cheeto Vera and you are, the competitor that we all think he is, he's probably going to be going, I want that win back.
Yeah.
I want to get that back. I want to avenge that loss. So that's a great call out as well, actually. So fantastic night for him. He got you know, 4 and a bit rounds in the bank for his experience in a main event. He got the finish of a surging prospect in Ricky Simone, and he got the call out right. You know, he can fight a guy that's ranked higher than him, who's a big name, and someone that will probably go, yeah, I do want to take that fight because of the history we've got. So yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. Fantastic night for him, and yeah, I don't want to go as far as to say future champ, but I do think we're looking at someone that has the ability to improve dramatically over the next few years, and yeah, we could see something special from Song Yadong over the next few years.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what was one of the nice things I saw last week, and it was a post on social media from Dominic Cruz. Him and did you see it? Him and Uriah with their arms around each other, and
no, I didn't see it.
Which was lovely to see. And then it swiped right. The next picture was Dominic with his arm around Cody Garbrandt as well. So it was lovely to see that beef is buried, and because, oh my God, they were at each other's throats for years, him and Uriah, and it always felt like with me, Uriah just weren't really bothered. He seems just like a pretty chilled guy, Uriah, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And all the time Conor was giving it to him, he was just smiling, one and taking it on the chin during the tough series. But yeah, really nice to I love seeing shit like that. Just some buried beef. It's good, man.
How long till we get a TJ with his arm around Uriah Faber photo?
Never gonna happen.
Never gonna happen.
Fuck that guy. Right. Well, look. I mean, we took a little break between recording the last one to doing this, and in the meantime, we were just looking at stuff that was coming up, and we've seen that. I mean, we'll do an episode, I'm sure, about the card in full in the weeks to come. But Amanda Nunes, Pena, is now not happening.
Yeah, we were going to get the trilogy, but it looks like Pena has broken her ribs, which sounds nice and painful. So Irina Aldana has stepped in, and I think, you know, bantamweight is just one of these iffy divisions at the moment where there's not really a huge amount going on. There's not a lot of it. There's not even actually a lot of fights being made in the division. If you look at it, this is a very inactive division, not just from the title perspective, but just overall. Like flyweight and strawweight are far more active divisions. Look, good on Irina Aldana. She's getting a title shot. She's stepping in on short notice. But no one's going to be overly excited about it. Like, this is headlining the card. I mean, it's been bumped up or propped up, I should say, because also the co-main event, and I'm hoping it's 5 rounds. I think it's 5 rounds. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but the co-main event,
I think it's 3.
Is it? Oh, well, that is really disappointing. But the co-main event is Beneil Dariush versus Charles Oliveira. Now, that is some co-main event. Personally, I think they should move it to 5 rounds. I think that would benefit everyone.
Yeah.
And with a fight like this, where you're like, well, the winner of this could be getting the next title shot, particularly if it's Beneil Dariush. I think they should be 5-round fights if they're number 1 contender fights, really.
Yeah.
But Irina Aldana, her last win was against Macy Chiasson. Before that, it was Yana Santos, who I don't even really know Yana Santos. Before that, a loss to Holly Holm. Good win over Ketlin Vieira. That's phenomenal. Like, first round stoppage as well. That's really good. But it's not like she's on a 4 or 5 fight win streak or anything. You know, she's won 4 of the last 5. The loss to Holly Holm is kind of sandwiched in the middle there. Yeah, I don't think this fight is going to be putting bums on seats or getting people to pay for the pay-per-view.
What an opportunity. What an opportunity. Let's put a positive spin on it. What an opportunity.
Okay, sure. You can be Mr. Positive and I'll be Mr. Realist. So
you know what? We could have another Mexican champ. That excites me.
That's true.
Never write off a Mexican. Like, never ever write off a Mexican. And I think, you know, as I mentioned on the last episode, you know, when you get people pulled in and they get their chance and it's shit or bust, like, sometimes you can see the world get shocked. And And does Amanda kind of like detune her training a little bit and step down a gear and think, oh, well, you know, this is an easy fight for me? I don't know. Probably not. I do. You know, she's elite level, and that team are gonna, you know, set her to kill. But I
Do you
think
know
this
what I
is a
wanted?
great opportunity for Aldana,
It
and
is. I was gonna start trying to go down the road of, well, look at what happened with Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko. Look at what happened with Pena Nunes won. Like shit can go wrong. You don't know what's going to happen, and you know everyone's going, "Oh, it's an easy win for Nunes." But what about Arena Aldana coming through? You never know. And I thought, oh well, you know, what's the age difference here? How much older is Nunes than Arena Aldana? Because maybe that could play a factor. And I looked it up, and Nunes is younger than Arena Aldana.
mm.
So again, it just doesn't fill me with a huge amount of confidence.
It's not an exciting fight as such but who else is going to get that shot? Because Nunes has cleared out that division. Like, you know, she is the GOAT.
Ketlin Vieira was a name that was mentioned for a
Yeah.
while. I mean, Aldana has a win over Ketlin Vieira, so that probably makes sense that she got the
Mm.
shot over her.
Do you know what? I'm
and
just
Ketlin
looking.
Vieira lost her last fight to Raquel Pennington, so she can't get the shot, can
Yeah.
she? So, yeah.
I don't want to go into this card too much, but again, it just feels like the first sort of few months of this year, it felt like we were spoiled by UFC. It just felt like there were so many great cards and so many huge events. This doesn't seem super
No, it
exciting
doesn't.
June the 10th, but yeah, things change, and we'll see what happens if that card sort of forms in. It takes any other form as we get closer to it. Who knows?
I
Right.
have to just do a little apology because I said, "Oh, I don't know who Yana Santos even is." It's because she's recently got married. It's Yana Kunitskaya, who we should all know. But yeah, I didn't realize that. So she's been married. She's now Yana Santos. There you go. Anyway, apologies, Yana. What do you want to talk about next? A bit of BKFC. Are the gloves coming off?
Yes, let's get them gloves off.
Go on then, because I actually went round my brother's house last night specifically for you, because I didn't know how I could watch BKFC. It's not available anywhere as far as I'm aware. So my brother, totally dobbing him in here, he's got one of those slightly
Look at you!
dodgy
You're
little.
throwing your own family under a bus on a live podcast.
He's got all the legitimate channels that he pays lots of money for, because he's a law-abiding citizen.
You could have just watched it on YouTube.
Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, I watched it on YouTube.
Really? The whole thing? Oh, well, I've made an idiot
You
of
should
myself
check it out,
then.
YouTube. They've got loads of videos on there. Like,
Really? Like
yeah,
what?
hundreds. Like,
Is there one of those shows where that idiot off the In-Betweeners is chatting with some old bloke about MMA?
you can find that, I'm sure.
Yeah, all right, cool. What's that called? MMA
It was
Podcast,
only when
yeah.
you said old bloke that the penny dropped, that you just queuing me up to fucking give me a load of shit.
But anyway, yeah. So well, let me just erase everyone's memory of the last minute and a half.
Hang on a minute.
I watched on YouTube.
Speaking of old blokes, 15 years old this week.
Oh yeah,
That did make me feel old. Like, but I imagine that made a lot of young people feel very old as well. 15 years since that show dropped, right?
If you don't know what Stu's talking about, which you probably don't, the first ever episode of The In-Betweeners aired on the 1st of May 2008. I wasn't aware of this until I got sent a thing on Instagram on the 1st of May about it. So I did a little post about it. And yeah, 15 years old. And I've had a lot of people either saying they want more, spoiler alert, there will never be more. Stop saying that, it won't work. Yeah, so yeah, and a lot of people saying just lovely things about the show, and also that I've made them feel really old by making them think, I first watched that when I was 14, I'm now 29.
Crazy.
So yeah, there's that. But anyway, what the hell are we going on about?
We're talking about Bare Knuckle. We've never shown really any interest in this. We've never spoken about it before. No. But when I looked at the card, because you can't not see these things if you follow, any of the MMA sort of press sites and press companies on socials, you're inundated with it. And unfortunately, if you do follow them, as much as you get all the cool stuff about the UFC, you do get a lot of YouTuber boxing stuff and the BKFC. Oh, and the slapping stuff. But when I saw this card, Mike Perry versus Luke Rockhold, Chad Mendes versus Eddie Alvarez, Beck Rawlings, former UFC fighter, and Big Ben Rothwell. So these are all people that any, long-time UFC fan is going to be very interested in all of these fights. Have shown interest over the years in all of these. Mike Perry, we know he's said and done some really stupid things over the years. But when he got in the octagon, he was always value for money. He would always, he's the guy that's going to bite down on the gum shield, and invariably there'd be some sort of fireworks and some of the back and forth he had, the classic stuff he had with the spar with what's his face, the Darren, what's his name? Who's the Scouser?
Till.
Who?
Till,
yeah. Where he's going, I want to go.
I was like, it can't be Till. You can't have forgotten Darren Till's name.
I've forgotten Darren Till's name. He'll be every BKFC.
Ladies and gentlemen, early onset Alzheimer's is a real thing.
Oh, don't. I literally turned 50 last week. So that's probably, it's all going downhill from here. But what's weird is we now live in a world where there is a combat sport, where Mike Perry is the best in the world.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's
kind of true. He's really well suited to it. Like, I have to say, I'm not really a fan of the bare knuckle thing.
I'm not.
I think ultimately, it is boxing without the. There's a few fun things about it.
Well, it's owned by Triller, isn't it? And obviously they're an organisation that are paying people a lot of money to fight in various forms, and I, you can see why these fighters are going, do you know what? If I can go over there and earn a fortune, I'm going to do it.
That's the one thing I like about it, is there's fighters that have been in MMA at the top of the sport for a really long time, and sadly, they go over to a bare knuckle event and earn more money for one paycheck than they have for any other paycheck they've had in the elite level organisation that has just been sold for 12 billion or whatever it is, or they are not sold for 12 billion, but in the acquisition of WWE to go with the UFC, Endeavour valued the UFC at 12 point something billion after buying it for only 4 billion a few years prior. So when you think about the astronomical sums of money that are going on behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff, it does make you go, why have these fighters, former UFC champion Luke Rockhold, why does he need to go over to bare knuckle boxing and go, oh, I'm earning more money here than I did at the UFC? It doesn't feel right. But
we're not going to see him over there for long.
Oh, he's never doing that again, is he?
No.
I mean, the build up to the fight was fun. Like Mike Perry wiping a bogey on Luke Rockhold was just great TV. Like, was it classy? Was it highbrow? No. But was it entertaining TV? Yes.
It's Mike Perry, Blake.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, what did you think of the fight itself between Rockhold and Perry?
I thought Rockhold was he couldn't kick. He couldn't. He
didn't look comfortable, did he?
He looked so uncomfortable. Perry looked like it was his domain. He looked like, I'm born to do this. I'm a scrapper. You obviously I've got no inside knowledge on this, but from what you hear from a lot of boxers and a lot of UFC fighters, when they talk about bare knuckle, they say it's a completely different, way of fighting. It freaks me out. I know it's called bare knuckle and that is what it is, but when you see them just throwing these shots to the head with no, the wraps around their wrist, but not even over their knuckles, and you just think, how are they not just busting their hands to pieces like constantly? It's like, but Perry looks super comfortable in there, and in sort of first or second minute of the second round, he cracked an uncomfortable looking Luke Rockhold, and you see him sort of stop and sort of motion to the ref that there was something with his mouth, and then you've seen him post fight. He's got a big split on his lip, but he's front tooth.
As well.
It stopped due to teeth injuries. So
yeah, and he's got a modelling career to think about.
He's a pretty boy, isn't he?
Joke. He's a pretty boy. He's done some modelling. His career, his teeth are no joke. He's got to look after those pearly whites.
Absolutely.
Mike Perry, on the other hand, could lose all his teeth, and I reckon he'd still be swinging. I think Eddie Alvarez said in an interview, this sport regarding bare knuckle, it's not for the athletes, it's for fighters. Yeah. And I think there is a difference there. And I think Luke Rockhold is an athlete and a phenomenal mixed martial artist when he was champion and on that run that he was on. But Mike Perry is a fighter through and through. And I reckon Mike Perry could lose all his teeth in a fight and still be swinging at you. So
he's lost all his brain cells and he's still throwing hands.
We mentioned this in the last episode. You're gonna have to apologise to so many people.
They're all thinking it. They're all thinking it, Blake.
Oh man,
I've not had a lot of sleep last night. But one thing that I thought, most importantly, Triller and BKFC must have thought, oh my God, this is gold. Conor McGregor's cage fight.
Yes, 100%.
He's throwing out advice as he does. He's standing up and he's shouting advice to the fighters. At one point, he shouts uppercut to Eddie Alvarez. Alvarez throws the uppercut and then points at Conor as if to acknowledge that come from him. Former foes. Obviously, Conor's fought both Mendes and Alvarez. And then when Perry gets the win, in a rare moment of intellect from Perry, he's been interviewed and he says, can we get Conor in here? Can I face off against Conor?
That was brilliant. BKFC,
so smart.
Whoever is the money people at BKFC, the Triller guys.
It's Triller, yeah.
They must have been like, oh my God, this could not have gone any better if we scripted it.
How can you get the most eyes on that?
With a belt over his shoulder. They gave him a belt just for a laugh, clearly.
Yeah.
Or maybe they paid him to be there. Maybe he got an appearance fee for being there. And they said, you can take home a BKFC belt as well. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll come and watch that fight. And it delivered for them. Because I think a lot of casual combat sports fans now will be going, Conor McGregor, oh, what's this sport? I've not heard of BKFC. Oh, shit, okay. Or they'll be going, oh, I'll watch it every now and again. But Conor will probably be involved in one of them one day. So I want to sort of keep up to date with it now and see what's going on.
Yeah.
He won't be anywhere near the BKFC ring for a while because he's contracted to the UFC. So he won't be anywhere near that ring in terms of competing. But it's certainly a great coup for them to
have the eyes on that man.
And he was talking positively about the whole thing. He was saying it was great. So yeah, it's not for me, but it is for Conor McGregor, and it will be for a lot of other people because it's for Conor McGregor. So well done to the guys at BKFC in terms of like a business move that night, having him ringside, and doing his thing.
Absolutely. The Mendes Alvarez fight I thought was really good. I love boxing, and as we've said, previously, I've not really been interested in this, but I did enjoy it. I did watch Mendes' last bare knuckle fight, and I love watching footage of Mendes on the pads. I think I really like how he moves, but it was a really brutal brawl. Alvarez took the decision, it was a cracking fight. And I would suggest that you go over there and watch Ben Rothwell, just because in that post-fight interview you're going to get a which we got. I'm glad that that's come over from the UFC, that you still get him doing that bad guy laugh, which is one of the most ridiculous things you will ever see. But yeah, that's all I think we need to say about BKFC for the time being.
Well, do you know what I didn't massively enjoy it because it just kind of is too much like boxing, and boxing to me, after being such a big MMA fan, just feels very one-dimensional. So the fact that they're not wearing gloves, I'm like, yeah, whatever. There were a couple of things that I did like about it, though, the way that fights start are absolutely mental. Rather than being, and I know you couldn't do this in MMA because there's just too many things that could happen, but the way that they're like, right, rather than standing behind the black lines and being away from each other, you've got to start in this tiny black circle. And as soon as the ref says go, they're immediately going. They're immediately swinging. It's like action from the off. That was kind of interesting. And then the other thing that I would genuinely love to see somehow in MMA, and I'm sure it won't happen, is in the result of a draw, they basically do an extra round, like a sudden death round. And I'm like, imagine that if they were like, right, this fight, maybe not in the championship fight so much, or no, maybe you could. Like, imagine this.
Well, they do it in tough.
Yeah, but that's because they only do 2 rounds.
Yeah.
But I think, say Moreno Figueiredo ended in a draw, which it did in that first fight, and they went, right, there's 1 3-minute, so like almost half the time, 3-minute sudden death round at the end. Like sudden death's probably the worst name to call it, obviously, because you don't want things bad to happen. Shit or bust round. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to the shit or bust round.
Shit or bust.
So yeah, I mean, whatever you want to call it, but like a 3-minute round where you're just like, there's no draws in this. 3 minutes extra, or if it's a 3-round fight, same thing, 3 minutes extra, and the winner of that round wins it. You could get some crazy stuff going on. That could be hella fun.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. So the draw stipulations, I think, look pretty good. I like those.
Yeah, absolutely. I've no idea what other former UFC fighters are over there doing that, but I reckon certainly now off the back of Conor writing about it and there being a lot more eyes on it, it's going to mean there's going to be a lot more money there, and I think we're probably going to see a lot more former MMA stars over there trying to earn a few.
Can we play a quick game? I mean, we haven't discussed this at all, so we just think, who would you like to see out of like current UFC fighters? Who would you like to see go over and do bare knuckle again? I probably won't watch much of it, but who could you imagine being like super fun to watch? I mean, Justin Gaethje just leaps out off the page.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Of course, 100% Justin Gaethje.
But like, who else do you think? Oh, they would be pretty good fun in the old BKFC.
I can't see beyond Justin Gaethje now.
Really? Yeah, fair enough.
Oh,
I'll tell you what, Jessica Andrade.
Yeah,
Jessica Andrade would be really great to watch in there.
Pavlovich, I'd quite like to see him just throwing them hands everywhere.
I don't know if I could cope with Pavlovich. Oh man, that would be. Oh god.
Just touching on the heavyweight scene for a moment, I did see that our friends Nick and Adam over at Fight Disciples posting about the fact that it's all gone a bit quiet for Francis. And we spoke about it on the last episode about Henry Cejudo leaving the UFC, expecting everybody to be waving sort of checkbooks everywhere, and he was and it all fell a bit flat. And it was really interesting hearing Nick sort of voice his thoughts on it, which also I should say we've had Nick and Adam separately on the podcast. Go check out their episodes. They're such top lads, and Fight Disciples is a wonderful podcast. What do you make of it? Because from what the whole thing was that he got offered huge amounts of money, the most money a heavyweight has ever been offered, apparently, to stay within the UFC. But I guess at the time there was lots of chat about him going and boxing Tyson Fury and obviously earning heavyweight boxing money. That's fallen a bit flat. That fight doesn't appear to be on the table anywhere. And now we're seeing or hearing rumours that he's talking to other MMA organisations. Well, I don't know who they are. Is it one? Is it Bellator, PFL, whatever it is?
I can't remember if something happened with Bellator or not. That I can't remember. Obviously, One Championship have recently come out saying that You know, they didn't even bother submitting their final offer to Francis because there was other things that they just wouldn't see eye to eye on. And this is the thing with the UFC as well. According to Francis and the people around him and what's come out um, from these different negotiations with the UFC and beyond, is that Francis isn't just about the money. You know, you can throw as much money at Francis as you like. He wants to be either part of the organization where he can make positive change for the fighters, or you know, he wants to make sure that there's like medical care, health care, you know, that all that kind of thing in there, which I think is an amazing thing for him to be fighting for. I think credit to him for not just taking, he will be offered so much money to do fights in any organization, whether it be boxing or MMA. Big, big, big money. And he's staying true to his principles and he's wanting more. He wants to leave a lasting positive impact on the sport by achieving something for fighters that the UFC haven't done and seems like they won't do it unless fighters were to band together and unionize, and that doesn't ever seem like something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a tricky one because he is obviously hurting himself because there's a lot of money to be made and he's not going to make it if he sticks with this. But then these changes will never happen if he's not fighting for it because he seems to be the only person really out there doing that. So I don't know. In a way, I sort of feel for him. I want him to get paid, want him to get his money. But I do like the fact that he's trying to achieve big things for other people going forward, and he's you know being considerate of that. But where it leaves him, I don't know. I think there's a rumor about maybe the PFL getting involved and maybe offering him something really big that could work for them. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, Dana White has said very clearly, I'm not having him back in the UFC. Would Dana White go back on that? I think so, because I think if John Jones beats Stipe when that fight happens, which I think he absolutely will, I'm not massively excited about the Stipe fight. I think there's better challenges for John Jones out there. But if John Jones beats Stipe, which he's likely to, and then he says the only fight I want is Francis, either bring Francis back to the UFC or I'm going to retire again. Maybe the UFC think again. And Dana goes, well, do you know what? It makes sense for us to try again and bring him back because the money they'll make from Jones versus Ngannou will be astronomical. That's probably outside of a Conor McGregor fight. I think that is the biggest fight the UFC can make right now.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, John Jones, Francis Ngannou. They could still try and make it happen, I think, but we'll have to wait and see. I think Dana will go back on that because money talks.
Is anyone excited about seeing Francis fight a heavyweight in the PFL? Like, don't get me wrong, everybody's going to want to watch Francis. It's great for the PFL. There's loads of new eyes on it because they've got the baddest man on the planet. But who's over there that's going to trouble him? No one.
There's some good fighters in the PFL. I quite enjoyed last season of the PFL and stuff, but
there's not
there's not a big name that anyone's going to be like, whoa, I can't wait for that fight or anything. You know,
they'd have to sign someone else surely to make it an exciting fight. I don't know. You know, if the PFL were going to put their hands in their pockets and sign Francis Ngannou, then you know they know what they're doing. There's going to be a plan in place to make sure that they recoup that money and give fans exciting fights. So yeah, I'm interested to see it. Not as interested as I'd be to see him fight John Jones, but I'm not interested in seeing him fight Tyson Fury. I understand why he sees that as or saw that as an exciting fight in regards to the financial elements of it, but yeah, that's you see the negotiations around Tyson Fury fights, and they just constantly just up in the air, and it just nothing ever seems to happen. It gets so close, then it all stops, and you just think, and that's with a boxer, let alone somebody that's coming from a different discipline and somebody that's also got a very high list of demands. Like will that ever happen? I don't think so now. And so, yeah, I do worry that it leaves Francis high and dry. You just hope he's still training. You hope he's fit. You don't want this stuff to go on for sort of 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden Francis comes back and he's a shadow of his former self. Whether that'll be the case or not, I don't know. Maybe a few of us thought that'd be the case for John Jones, but that's not what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
And lastly, just wanted to sort of shout out our friend Owen Elliott, who had a great win over James Sheehan at the recent Cage Warriors Dublin fight. Owen took the fight over 3 rounds, unanimous decision at 170. Surely he's got to be moving closer towards a shot at a belt. Obviously, the Reece McKee got a win over the legend that is Jimmy Warhead at 170. Jimmy retired after that. It's lovely to see the outpouring of love and respect that he's got in the wake of that announcement. A proper true warrior of MMA. Props to Reece McKee. And yeah, I'll be seeing Owen Elliott get a little bit closer to getting that strap. I hope so.
I think so.
Yeah, and it was a great card. One of the I touched on how lovely it is to see photographs of people that had beef and seeing photos of Dominic Cruz with Uriah Faber. Lovely to see Paul Hughes and our boy arms around each other cage side at UFC Dublin. That was Cage Warriors Dublin. That was wonderful to see. And yeah, just a great night for Irish fighters in general. Decky McAleen got a huge win. The flying knee from Paddy McCrory was absolutely phenomenal against Angus Hewitt. Triangle choke by Adam Darby. Just a solid night for Ireland, and unfortunately a tough night for James Sheehan. But props to Oban, and looking forward to seeing what that Welshman can do. If you like hearing Welshman chat, go check our episode with Oban Elliott. Go check our episode with Jack Shaw, and also go check our recent episode with Jack Shaw and father Richard Shaw. Nearly forgot Richard's name then. God, I tell you what, 50 and my brain's gone to mush. But yeah, they're just a snippet of the episodes that we've recorded. There's well over 100, and we've been so blessed to have spoken to a real who's who of the MMA scene, whether that be UFC, Bellator, PFL, and Cage Warriors, and everything in between. So go check out the back catalogue for free wherever you get your podcasts. If you like to watch them, head over to our YouTube channel, and you can watch those interviews. But all we ask is that you give us a little subscribe, and if you can give us a comment or a like, love, share, retweet on the socials, it all helps. So if you can do that, we'd be super appreciative of it. We're back next time.
We are back next time. I was having a little look at Reece McKee's record here, and I think he was very hard done by in the UFC. I think he could definitely be looking at another shot in the UFC. I mean, he only had 2 UFC losses. One was to Alex Morono, who has been in the UFC since 2016, so a tough fight. And then the other one to a little-known guy called Hamzat Chimaev. So
that's a rough night in the office.
It's a rough time, isn't it? I think he definitely deserves another shot. So hopefully he gets that now after, unifying the belts at Cage Warriors.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.